Let's talk about avoiding scandal again, this time with financial policies for you, the administrator.
This episode of the Christian Principles Podcast is brought to you by the Herzog Foundation. And as always, the thoughts and opinions expressed within this episode are those of your hosts and not necessarily the Herzog Foundation. Welcome to the Christian Principles Podcast. I'm Matt George.
And I'm Mark Zockoll. I know what it's like right now to be blasted in the comments. We've had a couple of videos recently, a couple of reels, that people are very interested in letting us know how they feel about how stupid we are and how we don't read or do other things. And It's just part of the game, man. You're going to have responses. You're going to see a bunch of hearts on comments that you don't like and fewer hearts on things that you like. It's interesting, but it is what it is. You're supposed to engage with them. So I write comments, I engage with them, but it's usually I'm poking fun.
If you're ever looking to make a splash on social media, attack athletics and attack C.S. Lewis.
Exactly.
Holy cow.
These
outlandish... Not that we're ever attacking them. We're not attacking them whatsoever. But still.
I just kept saying, listen to the pod. You'll find the nuance. You'll find the nuance. Oh my goodness. You'll find the nuance that we actually approach this with if you listen to the podcast. So, But today we're going to continue down a secondary path. We had started this avoiding scandal, and we began it with this out of school faculty, staff, student relationships, or just meetings. Forget relationships, just meetings in general. And so today we're going to continue on, but avoiding scandal, financial practices for you, the Christian school leader. So head of school, administrator, principal, wherever you are in that leadership structure, whatever your school calls it, be it a school of 75, 300, 600, it doesn't really matter. What are some policies to keep you safe? What are some things that you should make sure you are not doing or are doing so that this scandal stays away from you? So
I like it. Let's do it.
Before we do it, though, let's go ahead and hear from the Herzog Foundation and GradeLink Student Information Systems.
This episode is brought to you by our partners at the Herzog Foundation, whose mission aligns beautifully with ours to advance and support Christ-centered education. The Herzog Foundation exists to catalyze excellence in Christian schools, helping more children experience academic rigor, biblical truth, and strong moral character, all in a safe and nurturing environment. Whether through teacher training, principal development, or strategic media efforts, the Herzog Foundation is committed to helping you, the Christian school leader, fulfill your calling with excellence. Their vision is bold but clear, a national renaissance in Christian education that impacts culture for generations. At the Christian Principles Podcast, we're proud to stand with the Herzog Foundation in that mission. Learn more at herzogfoundation.com. Together, we're building schools and futures on the rock of Christ. And as always, tell them that the fellas here at the Christian Principles Podcast sent you their way.
Managing all those different fees, whether it's tuition, lunch, registration, or tech fees, can be a headache. GradeLink makes it simple to collect and manage all those payments in one place. You can keep everything organized and make life easier for your school and parents alike. Head over to cpp.gradelink.com to learn how GradeLink can streamline fee collections for you.
All right, into this conversation on the things that we're going to do to be above reproach. I think that's a good way of saying the things that we want to do to make sure that no one else, or people will always look on us for an issue. Like that's going to happen. I should say that people will always find an issue with us. But maybe what we say instead is doing what we can to push off as much of that as possible, right? Doing what we can to set ourselves up in such a way that we are hopefully above reproach. So, first up, easy one, hopefully, don't spend any money alone. These are all going to be nevers, so make it easy. Never spend money alone. Now, when I say never spend money alone, what I'm talking about is you should not have access to anything in the school's financial system that nobody else has access to. Perhaps there is a minimum threshold, or maybe reverse it, a maximum threshold for you to be able to spend without somebody else needing to sign off on it. But even that spending in a silo, the credit card statement doesn't come to you. You don't have access to a debit card that nobody else can touch, or an account that's split off for you or some purposes. We do not spend money alone.
Yeah. Even if you're in a situation where you are the financial head, maybe as well as the administrator, principal, the school head, whatever, designate that individual that you're going to and saying, hey, I'm going to make this purchase, just FYI. Like, even in that sense, if you happen to be in a unique situation where you don't have to get approved by the board, or you don't have to get approved by some other superintendent or a CFO or something to that effect. If you don't have that, doesn't mean you just, well, I don't have it, so I'm just going to have to do it. It's still best practice to make sure others are reviewing what you're trying to do. In my situation, I've almost pulled the trigger on purchasing things, and people are like, hey, you do know that you could get that a lot cheaper over here. It's like, oh,
Oh,
yeah,
positive.
nice. So yeah, there's a lot of benefits, not just in avoiding the scandal. Whenever it's, make sure you're running your purchases through another pair of eyes.
And this is, we should say in general, this is an easy one for us to want to get more people involved with, because we know that money is something that does lead to scandal. People get real upset about money, as well they should. And if we're doing this in a ministry, especially one attached to a church, there could even be, tithing funds involved in this, not just nonprofit giving involved with this, or tuition payments. So as far as specific examples, let's say, for example, I'm the school principal. In this situation, I am the building leader. There's not somebody over me in the building lead, and I need to go make Chromebook purchases. You mentioned I'm just going to go ahead and spend the $2,500 on the thing that you want. Run it past somebody. Have a requirement in place and put it on paper. Go ahead and put it on paper that anything over, and it should be a relatively small amount, couple $100 maybe, is going to need a actual paper co-signed, or at least an email swap. This would be an easier way of doing that perhaps, but an email swap with timestamp saying, I'm going to go purchase this, please approve. And then that language of approved comes back from the person that the writing says needs to make those approvals, or at least, sign off on. The more you can do with open vest, the more you can do with complete transparency, the better off you're going to be. So never spend money alone. Matt, what's our second never in this list for us?
Yeah, number 2, along those same lines, don't purchase alone. Also, don't be the one who approves your own expenditures. That it kind of goes without being said, but
Well,
I'm just saying, like we just said, you're going to go buy the big Chromebook fleet or whatever. I need an approval. Okay, let me take this hat off. Let me put this hat on. Approved. Okay, here we go. Don't do that. But even to the effect of, I traveled for a meeting. I traveled in my own personal car, and we have it to where we can get reimbursed for fuel. So that I'm just going to get back to school. I'm going to write myself a check for how much fuel I spent, sign it, cash it, done. Don't do that.
yeah, well, I think we've seen this evidenced as well with, I called them bulldog leaders, perhaps of yesteryear, in certain ministries, that even if there was somebody under them who technically wrote the checks, it was based on the word. It wasn't a form. It wasn't a filled out process. It was, I'm just going to pick a name, Kathy. I just went and I spent this much. Can you write me a check from the school account, from the church account, to reimburse me for this? And it was, in that case, there was spending money together. So it wasn't you writing a check to yourself. Like, maybe that part was in place appropriately, but that leader was approving their own expense, and there wasn't a paper trail behind it. There wasn't a receipt turned in. There wasn't much more than, hey, could you write me a check for this? Because I just put this on my credit card and it comes due sooner than later. So don't be in a position where you're putting somebody else in a bad position as well. Make sure that the both of you are where you should be, and you are not able to are you able to walk in and say, write me a check? Because that is also inappropriate. If we're going to give another couple examples here, let's say that there's not a system in the books for how receipt reimbursement's going to occur. It was just, I walked in with a receipt, I handed the receipt and I said, I need this back. And the whoever writes me that check. Well, there should be some more formality to it, as difficult as that would be. There should be a log that says, okay, these are the refundables, and you need prior authorization before you seek reimbursement on these anyway.
Yes.
So technically an email thread or something that shows you got this checked off beforehand would be useful. But it's receipts, perhaps mileage, anything like that. If you are in a position where you're able to just write your own check or tell somebody to do it and they do it without that verification, probably need to change up your system.
Yeah. I know we love doing things easy, but finances in all reality ought to be something that's not easy. That's safe. Whenever you have a little bit of complication in that, you've got to get more people to sign off on it. That's their safety there.
Absolutely. Third one, never control the entire financial process. Depending on the size of the school, depending on the ministry, whatever it happens to be, you might have limited office staff. You could be, 50 kids in the school, and you got a couple of faculty members, and whoever is the administrator is also acting as one of the halftime teachers or something. Even up to, again, the schools of 1,000 plus. There needs to be a financial process in place which allows for transparency and which allows for accountability. It doesn't matter what the size is. It needs to occur. And so if that looks like one person, again, able to say, yes, that's fine, go ahead and spend that money, which that should be two people at least. That same head can then write the check, because who else is going to be in the checkbook besides this guy? And then they can, when the accounts are ready to be reconciled, they're the ones also reconciling. And then they are not offering reports to anybody. There's no expected reporting to be done to a leader or a business, a person tasked with the business management, or to a board at the very least. Any one of those steps, and really all of them, should be split out to different persons. They should be different check-ins on each one of those. If those steps are not completed with a multiplicity of persons, we're probably not in a good spot. It shouldn't be that Mrs. Smith is able to take in, perhaps even tuition cash in the office, and then write the deposit slip, go and put the deposit slip in the bank, and then reconcile the bank statement all on her own. There's got to be something in place where somebody else double checks the counting. Somebody else is the one who's actually writing the deposit slip, where that receipt deposit slip gets put back in, who has access to the bank accounts live. There needs to be checks there. There needs to be another person involved in that process.
There is a beauty in the number 3, I think, when it comes to, we've been saying a lot.
Numerology.
Completion. But we've been talking a lot about getting at least another pair of eyes, but it would be simple for me to get a stooge and say, approve this, done.
Sure.
Sure. The whole yes man effect. So to have that third person that is also involved in the process, not as easy to do. It can be done, but especially if you can somehow get somebody that's unrelated.
Yes.
I mean, obviously they're in a position of authority and know-how, but like if you just have, let's just say you have a financial secretary and an office administrator or receptionist or something to that effect, where they're in the same office, they're working in there all the time. They can be checking for each other, and that might be a great system, but they could also come up with a system of how to fool everybody and, stash hundreds of thousands of dollars away. So get outside of the office in that, there's a church deacon or there's somebody else that's been given some kind of responsibility that's, again, outside, not as comfortable with those two working together who can put eyes on it. And as I said, it might be just somebody that gets appointed for that very position of you're just going to
Exactly.
review this. You're just going to check to make sure that what they're doing lines up with what they say they're doing, and that's it. And you
You
put your
got
little
one.
John Hancock on, and you're done.
You got one person with one job. So we could really, even if you are hearing this like, well, I have to do everything because it's just me. Well, there's probably some board over you. Okay, so the very least, let the board be, make the board, inform them that they're responsible for balanced reviews every 2 weeks, even if that's way more than their meetings. Make them I would push to make them responsible for a multiplicity of report reviews. That
Yeah.
at least brings somebody into it and they're already vested. And then if there is somebody else who can have one job, and that one job is to, again, the writing of the deposit slips and all that kind of stuff, usually done in-house, done quickly, but the reconciling. So the one
I
thing
got
they're
this
going to do
much.
is
We
reconcile.
deposited that much. Yeah.
Exactly. Maybe that's the one thing they're going to do, and that's all you ask them to do, and they're going to pass that along to the board on their own. Of course, we'd much rather have somebody involved at the granular, their receiving and their depositing level, and hopefully there is definitely more than one person doing that. But there are ways of making this so that even just giving access. Here's another thought. Have you shared the credentials with someone who is vetted and should be responsible to hold on to the credentials for logging in to seeing the bank accounts for the school and being able to, and then because you know of how limited your assets are as far as people, they know it's going to be them checking on this more frequently than they would if you had a full suite of office staffers ready to go. And on the other side of this, with a full suite of office staff, there needs to be checks and balances because things get lost in the wash. I mean, welcome to the federal government, right? You can find how much money can easily find its way wherever it needs to because there's just so much floating around and so many people floating around and so many procedures that there are to work through. That it's not too difficult to lose something to someone on those lines because it's what's this much? How much who's going to miss this much?
Yeah. So to help with that, I think our next one goes right along with it in that you should never really let a month go by without presenting your numbers to your school board, to whoever is over you, if it's a school board, if it's a pastoral staff, whatever else it may be for your Christian school, but that outside body who you are held accountable to, which I hope you have that individual or group, and you're presenting them with, here are the finances, here's the actuals, here's the bank accounts, here are the enrollment numbers, everything, keeping it up to speed. And you might say, well, my board doesn't meet once a month. They have an email. So, sending a report in at least once a month, again, is providing transparency that is that safety net, keeping the board who meets perhaps quarterly not coming and suddenly realizing, oh, wow, we're in bad shape and we've been going down this hill for a while. And so you want to make sure you're keeping everything out front, keeping the board well informed so that they can make well-informed decisions. They can support you in a well-informed manner. So all of that to be said, keeping that frequent reporting is vital.
And remember, I'm assuming here that you don't have these issues. You're not in a place of scandal quite yet. Some of this should be seen as just protection of you. You should see this as, I want to, before God, be as appropriate as possible. So even if this protection is not currently in place, it will be in place as of next week because I'm not doing this anymore. And if they want me in this position bad enough, they will make a way for someone else to put their hands on this money, for someone else to make these reports. And when it comes to those reports, what would be good to have on those reports? Well, we're talking about reports that goes to a head of school, a school board, perhaps your account. Your account balances, so that's probably checking, saving if there's some other kind of saving. Tuition outstanding, so what has not been recovered yet, but should have been recovered, so maybe that's a ratio. Credit card balance, income versus budget, expenses versus budget, enrollment count, and then a payroll percentage of the budget. And especially looking forward, I'd also say those reports, I have very much appreciated being in board meetings when we're forecasting out and we're saying, okay, this is the cash we have to burn before we're done. If we lost everything tomorrow, this is our cash asset before we burn out. And what we expect to come in by June, whatever, this is what we would expect to have payroll by payroll by payroll, which would also include when that money is injected, which it should be able to be done relatively simply, especially with modern technology and our different learning management systems. So last one to talk about here, never do business in the shadows. And this is all encompassing, but what I would point to here would be the place to start. This would be something obvious like the bidding process. Having a bidding process, a policy which says we will never just have one quote on any maybe not purchase, but any contract work demands 3 quotes or an attempt at 3 quotes. Because maybe there's not 3 cleaners in your area that would actually take the job on, but an attempt at 3 quotes must be documented for anybody, which hopefully takes away or would point to some of this never do business in the shadows. Have policies in place for yourself so that if it does come down that it is your brother-in-law's business that wins the bid, you can be confident that it was the best of the 3 or that you were never part of it, right? That you
Yeah.
weren't part of it, or that it was 3 bidded quotes and we have them and you have them filed as to why it was the best and a written reason for choosing the one that was. What else do you think of when you think of never doing business in the shadows?
Well, very closely related to that, I have hired my wife. So
Oh, yeah.
when it comes down to that, and I'm responsible for contract writing, I'm responsible for salary setting, like that for me was, I don't want to make this call. I mean, yes, I think she's the most qualified. She's the best person to fill this position,
Sure, yeah.
and I'll support that at like she told me to. But I would also say that I will maybe offer what the expected protocol would be of setting, but people outside of me are going to make the final call, whereas I would have
Mhm.
for somebody else. And the other nice thing for me is that I do know that ultimately a board will be approving it, but even in the beginning processes, that's where the shadowy part is,
Mm.
that your board may not necessarily see. The board might see, oh, we're hiring Jenny and we're paying her this much money. That obviously went through a process, and so we're going to approve it. And maybe your board is a little bit more thorough than that, but having even just started with that process, that I know this pertains to me, I'm not going to, oh, I'm putting my child into preschool. I have an idea. Let's create a massive scholarship opportunity, because it obviously will be benefiting me. So
Mhm, mhm.
anytime where there's something that could be twisted or turned, the what's the theme that's coming through this whole podcast? The more transparency you can give, the more you can keep it out in front, the more eyes you have on it, the more you have involved in the creating of, whether it be financial discounts, whether it's reimbursements, whatever it may be, so that it cannot in any way be misconstrued as self-serving.
There are a couple others that I would throw in here that could probably stand on their own. There's the thought that if I'm ever doing things with my personal account and a school account, mm-mm. And that's good policy anyway, because the school needs to see how much it costs to operate. So we get in this, we sometimes we get into this, well, I'll just go ahead and cover that. Well, you got some teachers that are screaming, "Give me an
Yeah.
Amazon wish list," because they don't give me any money for my classroom. And other teachers are like, "Well, I'll just go ahead and cover that and don't worry about it."
Yeah.
You as a school leader, you say, "I'm not paying for this with my
Hmm.
personal account. I'm not doing that because I know we need to know how much it actually costs to operate this place." And if I'm just every so often or not so often, if I'm doing it often covering with my own personal accounts, at some point I may not feel how I feel right now, and I might want to take rather than give.
Right.
So keeping those accounts separate, not that they wouldn't be separate, but making sure that you've purposed in your mind and even on paper that you will not be buying anything with any kind of personal card, good rule. That might mean you have to go out and get a credit card for the school or get some other form of payment for the school. But there's also the opportunity for poor accounting to be that shadowy part. Like, well, okay, well, we know we have money over here. So then you got leaders knowingly or not using bad accounting principles to move money from one to the other, to rob Peter to pay Paul within the school account, thinking they'll pay it back sometime when they didn't remember this was a designated fund. Or even if it wasn't a designated fund, it's just that's not what that money's there for. We shouldn't be doing that. It doesn't matter how small it is. It doesn't matter that we know tomorrow we'll pay it right back to that different account. That is operating in an area we don't want to be operating in. And stand up and say, no, we're not doing that.
Beautiful. That's good.
We should go ahead and we should go ahead and keep on and be done, because there's probably a lot more that we could talk about. And we went somewhat specific. We went somewhat general. Hopefully there's something for you to sink your teeth into. Perhaps we'll come back to this one with some comments from you. Hopefully not any stories, but some comments from you if you have any thoughts as what you would like to discover some more or dive into, or even go and talk to an accountant and come back and present to you. We're happy to do so. So tonight we're going to, Today we're going to offer our Christian Administrator Spotlight to Candy Greene of Chapel Hill Christian School. What's interesting about Chapel Hill Christian School is that it exists on North Girls School Road in Indianapolis, Indiana. So I'm wondering if Chapel Hill formerly was some kind of girls' school. I don't know.
I don't know. That would be, where do you go to school? On Girls School Road.
On Girls' School Road.
That is a great street to have a school on.
But
Not to mention Candy Greene. I mean,
Sure.
you get to have all of your files say green candy. So that's pretty cool.
Matt, go ahead and pray for Green Candy, would you?
Father, thank you so much for Candy and the work that she's doing there at Chapel Hill. And I pray that you would bless their ministry as they work through their summertime preparing for this upcoming year, whatever needs they may have, especially financially, that they would have the personnel they need to just do things efficiently and in a way that not just satisfies the needs of the ministry, but can even help it to grow. I pray that you would bring them students and the faculty that would just allow them to pursue their mission and bringing you honor and glory. Pray for Candy personally, that she would be encouraged and supported with her church family, with her faculty and staff, and through her personal walk with you. Pray this in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. All right, folks. Thanks for growing with us today.
We want to thank you for listening. We're honored that you spend this time with us each week. Our heart is to bring you practical conversations and resources that really serve you as a Christian school leader. One of the best ways you can help us spread the word is by leaving us a review and sharing the podcast with other Christian school principals you're connected with. You can also follow us on Facebook and Instagram. Join the conversation and share any posts that resonate with you. Every share makes a difference in helping more leaders find encouragement and practical tools. And remember, the podcast is just one way we help. We also love serving schools through speaking and workshops. Our keynotes and sessions are designed to give you actionable strategies you can take back to your team and implement right away. If you'd like more details, just send us an email at info@christianprinciplespodcast.com. We'd love to connect. Until next time, thanks for joining us on the Christian Principles Podcast.